All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is up, SHIPIT Nation? We are back here. Quick hits. First time this season. Really excited to kind of break down the slate before everybody heads over to the site to take a peek at the slate plan and the cores that we have posted. 7 games today in the association. 4 of them have blowout risk, so we're a little nervous about that, and we'll kind of chat about that. But we're going to utilize this time to keep this video nice and short and take a peek, kind of an early look, quick look before you head over to the site and take a peek at what we have going on over there. First and foremost, let's get this out of the way. We are still doing code NBA15. Take advantage of that. Some of the best guys in the industry, best members of the community are here, and we're talking sports every single day, all day. That Discord does not stop. Wake up in the morning time, look up at 200 messages after, a nice little snooze, and you're back right there grinding. But utilize this code, get all the sports, get it while it still lasts, as this is the best time to be a sports fan and to make some money. Let's hop into the slate here, guys. We find ourselves in a position where, like I said, there's 4 games that have blowout risk, as well as some injury news. We'll start here with the Heat and the Hornets. The Hornets coming off a back-to-back. The Heat, I believe, did not play last night, if I'm not mistaken. But we get that injury news right away with LaMelo Ball, Cody Martin, and Seth Curry, all questionable here over the last hour or so. We don't have any news on that. So we'll keep our eyes on the Discord and on X to see what happens. I don't think all 3 of them miss. If they do, it'll just be a mess, and I believe the Heat can, win this game very handily. But value will open up. I assume one of them will be out, which will bring Trey Mann into contention again. That was a fun one last night. He was nice and cheap. He was popular, but he definitely, was utilized by winners. If LaMelo Ball misses, I do want to kind of target Miles Bridges, 7,400. He's playing in the low 30 minutes. Fair price tag, and he takes a ton of shots, looking somewhere between that 16 to 20 shots per game. That could go up with LaMelo Ball missing. Jumping over to the Heat side, we love to target bigs against Charlotte, and Bam Adebayo at 8,100 is going to be on my list. Not getting any love, as we can see here in the early run of projections for ownership. But I think both him and Jimmy Butler's prices are just a touch too cheap. And I want to be able to utilize that in a big bounce back spot where they did not look good in the opener. Charlotte likes to, throw the ball around, chuck up shots, run up and down the floor. And I think that plays very well for both Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. I believe all the other prices on the Heat side are very fair and not much for us to target. But, a relatively close game for this slate. Points are going to be scored. The Heat are projected at 115, which is a lot of points. So if you're game stacking this, I don't mind throwing in a third piece from the Heat if you can make it work. Jumping down to the Celtics and Pistons. This is our first game that we have blowout risk potential. Celtics that look great. And, I believe some of these prices aren't fully caught up to what they should be. We'll start with the guys that I think are properly priced that I won't be targeting. Al Horford, he's older. We saw it last game. He did not get essentially any run after he kind of played in the first half. Obviously, they took care of Washington. 5,200 is kind of a juicy price tag, but I don't believe he's going to be the minutes guy that we've seen in the past, so I'm going to stay away. As well as Drew Holiday, I believe his price is fair at 6,200 on DraftKings. I don't want to worry about that. I want to focus on Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Peyton Pritchard. We'll start with the starters and then jump down to Pritchard. Jaylen Brown is probably between those 3 going to be at the bottom of my list just because 8,100, pretty heavily relying on scoring. and the potential for blowout if Jason Tatum has a game, which I think he can have on his revenge tour, if you will, after the Olympics, kind of takes him out of contention. But Jason Tatum at 9,700, I mean, he's shooting the ball awesome to start the season. This team looks great. He looks like he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. And if you're getting him at sub 5% ownership, I believe he's certainly in play, especially with the blowout risk that we have on the whole slate. I don't mind gain stacking this. So I want to target Jason Tatum first. Derek White is a couple $100 short of what I think he should be. So I don't mind utilizing that. And Peyton Pritchard's price is climbing, but at 4,700, I think we can still take advantage with no Hauser on the floor. He's out again tonight. We saw him, kind of first rotation off of the bench. He does play that blowout run and had 5 threes in the last game. Not very many other peripherals, but I will assume that those kind of fall their way in moving games. As far as the Pistons side, I only really want to target Cade and Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey's right there around, minutes and fantasy points for a $6,200 player. But the only way that I'm playing these guys is if I think this game is going to stay close. And if so, it becomes a game stack for me. Cade he's just a baller. And it's really fun to watch. I want to get this stat right for shots. He was shot 23 and 24 shots in both of the games to start the season. 8,700 isn't going to be expensive enough for him if this game does stay close. They need his scoring, but not really much love here. And I think it's going to be because of the blowout risk as far as ownership. So those are my 2 true highlights. We came to the season thinking Tobias Harris would have a potential to be a floor guy for us. He hasn't really shown out well to start the season, so I'll be staying away from that. Jumping down to game 3. Let me take a drink of water here by myself. Kind of first time doing this. Got to get used to spacing some stuff out. Cavs and Wizards. Wizards opened up, what was it, 2 nights ago with Jordan Poole, I believe, hitting 5 threes in the first quarter. We had some value options in that game with both Bub and Kubalay. Cheaper than 42 and 4,400. I don't believe, they will get run at 42 and 4,400. I just don't believe that the scoring is going to be there to make them worth value on getting into our rosters. We have 10% ownership on Bub, and I believe that will kind of climb throughout the day if we don't have any news aside from this Charlotte stuff to open up some value. But for me, I don't think the upside is there. As we see, his ceiling is only 18 points. I believe that's about right. As far as Kubalay goes, he has peripherals. He's kind of that miniature triple-double, if you will, but only took 2 shots in the opener, so I want to stay away from that. Not the biggest fan of playing Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, specifically versus this tough Cavs team. Jumping over to that side, 119.5 points is a lot of points. And I believe that the Cavaliers are priced fairly. I just don't know where the ball is going to go and how points are going to be scored when the prices are spread out like this. Obviously, with Mobley and Allen together on the floor, it's a fun watch. Mobley would be my favorite between those two. He just takes more shots, and for an extra $100, I want to go that route. Mitchell, Garland, and we'll throw LeVert into the mix. We'll talk about Wade in a second. This is kind of a tough spot for me. Like I said, I believe the pricing's right. Garland gets a few more minutes as it's kind of shown through the first couple of games. So I go there first at 7,300. But it becomes tough for me because I think the Cavs can run the Wizards out of the gym tonight. If that's the case, Donovan Mitchell is, shooting 20, 25 times. Not really hitting them, but, at 8,900, we need those shots. And if the game doesn't stay close, he might not get that last fourth quarter run. So kind of off my list. And I believe the field is agreeing. Last person to touch on in this game is going to be Dean Wade. He had 5 threes. He played 27 minutes last game. 3,800. I don't want to play 3,800, but if there's no value, I don't hate it. He is getting a little bit of love at 10% ownership. But I think that's just because we don't have any value yet in the day. But for me personally, I don't mind a Cavs onslaught, if you will, in NBA. If you get the pieces right, it could be worth your while, but it's going to be a stay away game for me, as I think this is kind of the highest possibility besides the Celtics game to be a blowout and run out of the gym. Jumping down, Thunder and Bulls. Man, Thunder look awesome. And that was such a fun game to start their season with against Joker and the Nuggets. Well, first, Chet, I ate my words on Chet. It's not that I dislike Chet as a player. I'll get to that in a second. It was more just the matchup against Joker. And I believe he scored 62, 63 DraftKings points. I think he had 30 at half. It was fun to watch as we watched my lineups kind of go from top to bottom. But 7,700, he's, I think he's going to be popular. I believe this projected ownership goes up before first tip. It's just too cheap. I believe he's going to be mid 8Ks here in a couple of weeks. He's gotten so much better and threw in 63 DraftKings points, going 0 for 5 from the 3-point line. So he, has shown in the past he has the upside, but I think this is a new Chet that does offer 70-point upside. And playing along Shea, it's just so fun to watch. I mean, two young guys kind of playing. I believe this price is very fair. I believe we'll see him in the low 10s in a couple of weeks. But these guys are going to be my two top targets here. Probably my favorite kind of game stack scenario, if you will, with some options on the Bulls. Before we jump over there, though, just kind of looking at these cheaper guys that are going to be on the floor. I'm sorry, let's talk about Jalen Williams first. Jalen Williams, 7,100. I don't mind it, but if Chet's going to play well and SGA is going to score, I think he's kind of the odd man out, and you need his shot to fall to make it, worth your while at 7,100. But jumping back to these cheap guys, Dort, Joe, Wallace, Mitchell, Caruso, Wiggins, even Dang off the bench. I was wrong on Caruso in game one. He is priced too high for a guy that's only going to shoot 1 or 2 times. I don't see myself rostering him, and I don't see myself rostering kind of any of these guys, even if we don't have any value open up. They all are playing very fair minutes in those low 20s. They all can be productive, as we saw in game one. I just don't know where to go. So if you're making multiple lineups, maybe multiple game stacks with this game, I could see a position where you kind of mix and match the Dorts and the Joes and the Mitchells and the Wiggins just because of their prices and how many minutes they're going to get. But not going to be a spot for me on this slate. Jumping over to the Bulls side, like I said, this is probably my favorite game stack because we fall into a position where we have scores on the other side. And if we can get scores to score, this game's going to stay close. This is kind of exactly what we want. Zach LaVine, we played him last night. He was one of my favorite plays. He didn't quite get there at 7K. I think he got to the low 30s in fantasy points. But at 7,100 again today, he's going to be at the top of my list. I mean, Kobe White kind of ate into that production as he went off last night and had himself a night. But he's going to be my favorite target here. I'm going to look to target LaVine and try and use maybe Kobe White in the same lineup. But if that's the case, I'm going to have to make a decision on Shea and another stud. So it kind of falls into a position where I want to kind of play the two Thunder guys and Zach LaVine. Vooch, I mean, he's had 20 points and double-doubles in both of the games to start the season. I don't believe he has much upside with his price tag at 81, but certainly a floor kind of cash game style play that we don't mind, especially on a game or a slate like tonight where we don't have a ton of value options to get to the studs. Magic and Grizzlies. This one's going to be an interesting game for me, probably a game that I am not going to target. If we kind of look down on the Magic side first, we see Wagner going off at 7,100 in back-to-back games. He had himself a night, kind of made me eat my words, took away the production from Banchero. It's tough because I'm going to want to play these guys in spots where I can mix and match from the other side of the game. And if that's the case, like the Grizzlies are just really questionable for me. I mean, Ja Morant playing in the 20 in minutes for both games to start the season. Jaren Jackson's probably coming back tonight. I hope so. But they're priced appropriately. And especially if Zach Edey produces like he did last night, kind of bouncing back from the foul out in 15 minutes game. I just don't really know where I want to target. This game is a little bit slower relative to the rest of the slate, but a 1-point spread, you're going to want to find targets. So I'm going to stay away. But going back to the Magic side, Jalen Suggs, I mean, he had foul trouble in game one, and he was pretty popular last night at his price tag, but didn't get the minutes. Anthony Black kind of took those minutes from him. I believe he played 26 actual real-life minutes. Yes, he did. And Suggs, was the full, negative correlation with that. I mean, he ate up all those minutes, and he didn't get any run. I can see people going back to him tonight, especially if his ownership stays at 3, 4, 5, 6%. Just not a play for me. The last guy I'll touch on the Magic side is Wendell Carter. He played well again last night. Did not get the double-double that we were looking for, but I believe both games he's got into 30 DraftKings points, and at 5K, we're looking at that 6-7x value. He will fall into that bucket. Jumping over the Grizzlies side, like I spoke about a little bit, it's kind of tough adding Jaren Jackson back. We don't know who and where we want to target, so this is going to be a wait and see approach for me. I think the field agrees just relative to the ownership that we're seeing, but not going to be a top target of mine. Couple games left here, as DraftKings did not add the 2 late night games, which are going to be fun. We'll have that on Showdown and be in Discord to chat about it. Raptors and T-Wolves. When I watched the T-Wolves in night one, I found myself kind of questioning what the Randall trade was about. That did change in game 2, as you can kind of see that Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle are just going to take over all of the scoring for the team. So when you look at it in terms like that, I don't mind it. I just don't like the way that Anthony Edwards is kind of throwing up shots, a lot of threes, not super aggressive. I hope that changes to start the season, because I believe this was going to be his breakout year, and he's such a fun young player. Just a little nervous that Randall might get in the way. But from a DFS perspective and fantasy perspective, we like to know that guys are going to shoot and guys are going to continue to chuck no matter the game circumstance. So at 7,700, Julius Randle just might be a little too cheap. I don't think that guys like Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, even DiVincenzo, when he's not hitting his shot, are going to affect that. So as the starters go, it's Ant and Julius Randle for me. And from the bench, it's Naz Reid at 5K. He had himself a night last night, and at 5K, he offers 43 fantasy point upside. Tough to beat. Field agrees. I believe his ownership of almost 11% will increase before tip off. The last guy I'll kind of touch on, I mentioned his name, but DiVincenzo. I don't like it right now. I want to see him get more comfortable with the team. His shots aren't falling. 4,900 is a price tag that we don't mind targeting. I believe it should be, mid 5Ks, maybe the high 5Ks. So I can see you being first on the train for him, especially in the matchup we have tonight. If he's going to get some blowout run to kind of get more comfortable, I do like that. Jumping over to the Raptors side, Scotty Barnes had a very nice bounce back game last night, obviously with Quickly out. They're going to need his scoring. They're going to need his, kind of usage to keep them in ball games. RJ Barrett, it looks like he might be back tonight. We don't have an answer on that. So kind of keep your ear to the floor and in Discord to see if he is going to play. Won't be a target of mine, and certainly shake some things up if he is back. We'll start at the top with Davion Mitchell. He was a little popular last night, and it didn't go well for people. He started the game kind of hot, but didn't see a bunch of run later in the game and did not produce. So at 5,300, I'm going to continue to stay away. Grady Dick doesn't shoot the ball enough for me. And at 5,200, that's obviously kind of that mid-tier range. But we need guys that are going to shoot the basketball. We need points. Peripherals are nice, but if you don't shoot the ball, I can't play you. Like I said, stay away from RJ Barrett. Love the Scotty Barnes at 9K, sub 2, 3, 4%, whatever he may be, especially if RJ's out. They're going to need him to his usage rate and his points to keep them in ball games. And Pirtle, 6,200. He did get there last night. I believe he had 4 blocks. Stocks are obviously something that we keep in mind in DFS, but this is not something we can really predict. I can, maybe predict a block or a steal, but 4 of them and 8 points on DraftKings certainly changes the entire landscape of the slate, as it accounts for 25% of his fantasy point total. I don't mind it at 6,200. I think, the field is going to agree as we get closer to lock, but a little bit of a tougher matchup against Rudy Gobert. Nobody on the bench, really. I mean, Boucher played well yesterday for us. I believe it was 39, so he got a $100 increase to 4K. I don't mind it, especially if there's no value. He's going to get run, and obviously he played well last night. Not well, but well enough for his price tag. So I don't mind it, but I won't be going there tonight. To round it up, the game that I'm really, kind of falling in love with after the Thunder game is this Rockets and Spurs game. We'll start here with the Spurs side. Wembanyama is obviously like the most fun guy to watch in the NBA, and I'm going to have so much fun watching him for the next 20 years. But they're being so conservative with his minutes, and rightfully so, that it opens up a lot of this value we have for the Spurs. Barnes, I can never pronounce his name, Champagny, and Sohan. Those guys are too cheap. And especially if Wembanyama is going to continue to play like that high 20s in minutes, really opens up usage rate with somebody like Chris Paul on the floor that isn't going to shoot and look to be a facilitator. The field agrees. I think the ownership is going to be spread between the 4 of them. They all played well in the opener. Barnes scored. And he is, he's not the cheapest, but he is going to be my favorite play between the other guys. I just know that if he's going to get 10, 12 shots a game at 4,400, that the upside is there. But can't hate any of these plays here. And I am going to attack it. I'm okay playing 2 of these guys in lineups just because, like I said, Chris Paul's not going to shoot, and Victor, his minutes are being very we'll call it huddled up. They don't want to play him, and I can see why. On the Rockets side, I think Fred VanVleet is priced fairly. I think Sengun is priced fairly at 9,200. I don't want to play them. One, because you get Sengun against Wembanyama on one side, and if Fred VanVleet's shot doesn't fall, 76 might be too expensive. It's going to be Jalen Green for me. I want to get this right, but he has 20 plus shots in both of his games to start the season. The Spurs aren't the old Spurs as far as defensive and pace goes. So I don't mind him at 7,700, especially if he's going to be really low owned. I don't mind stacking Jalen Green and a couple of these Spurs guys together as kind of a game stack. But as we get closer to lock, we will see if value opens up. If it doesn't, these Spurs guys will be popular. Dylan Brooks played well in his return last game, but 4,600 not for me. I mean, this is the definition of a guy that really doesn't have a huge floor, and so I'm going to be staying away. Like I said, guys, that's all 7-game slate we have today on DraftKings, leaving out the late slate. We're using this kind of as a first look. I'm going to go dive in and write the slate plan and have that posted within the hour for a 4:00 tip on the West Coast. Appreciate you guys listening. We're going to do this every Saturday morning. Like I said, first show, so we're going to continue to narrow down that process as weeks go on. But appreciate you guys watching the whole show, maybe a little bit longer than I wanted. But dive into the Discord, dive into the slate plan, and we will see ourselves with some more kind of condensed plays and news regarding the slate. Lastly, to round out the show, again, NBA 15, utilize it. I don't know how long the promo will continue to go, but with an optimizer at $84 a month, I believe that it is. It's just a steal. You get all the sports. What other companies are charging for one sport, you get an entire website for. We have killers in every single sport. We're streaming all the time. We're always in the Discord. Utilize it so that you could become a better DFS player. Guys, I'm going to go write the slate plan. We'll be in the Discord chat with any questions. Appreciate you guys watching. Good luck to everybody in your guys' contest, and let's ship it.